Tonight, our special transmission as pro-Palestinian encampments appear in multiple universities in Canada. Assalamu alaikum and good evening. This is Muslim News Canada on Muslim Network TV. I'm Zahra Sayed. It has been 209 days since Israel started targeting Palestinians indiscriminately. Gaza's health ministry reports 26 people have been killed in the past 24 hours. 51 have been injured. A spokesperson at the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs is warning that an Israeli incursion into Rafah could endanger the lives of thousands of Palestinians. The news comes as Israel is adamant to launch an offensive in the city. The Israeli military has reported 7 casualties, including 4 children, following an airstrike on a house in the area. The United Nations estimates that rebuilding Gaza will cost up to $40 billion. It says the rebuilding efforts will be comparable to that post-World War II. It says that this is due to unprecedented levels of human losses and capital destruction in Gaza. On the diplomatic front, the Houthis say they are still targeting ships in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden in solidarity with Palestinians. Yahya Sarriya, the military spokesperson for the Yemeni militant group, has threatened to target any ship that heads to Israeli ports in the Mediterranean Sea. Israeli Economy Minister Nir Barkat has lodged a complaint with the Chief of Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development over Turkey's decision to sever trade ties. The United Kingdom Foreign Ministry has announced new sanctions on extremist Israeli groups and specific individuals linked to violence in the occupied West Bank. The World Health Organization says there has been a slight increase in food availability in Gaza. However, it says the risk of famine remains, particularly for those lacking the financial means to purchase food. The death toll from Israel's war is staggering. At the time of writing, Israeli attacks have killed at least 34,622 Palestinians. A report by the United Nations estimates another 8,000 civilians are buried under the rubble. 77,867 have been injured. Israel's revised death toll from Hamas's attacks stands at 1,139. Palestinian surgeon and orthopedic medicine professor Adnan Alor has been killed by torture while in Israeli custody. The Palestinian Prisoners Society says the incident occurred at the Ofer prison in the West Bank on April 19th. The group is terming the incident as a deliberate assassination. The Palestinian Civil Affairs Committee has confirmed the death. It says the Israeli authorities are withholding Alor's body. In a statement, the committee says another detainee, Ismail Abdulbari Qadir, has also died in custody. Qadir's body, along with 64 other prisoners, was handed over yesterday. The statement says Qadir also suffered from torture in Israeli custody. Alor was arrested in December alongside several medical staff and patients. He was heading the orthopedic medicine department at Al-Shifa Hospital. He is known for his work across various hospitals in Gaza. The United Nations Special Rapporteur on the occupied Palestinian territories, Francesca Albanese, has expressed deep concern over Alor's death. Albanese is urging diplomatic intervention to protect Palestinians. Medical organizations, including the World Health Organization, have repeatedly condemned attacks on Gaza's healthcare workers. The Palestinian Health Ministry says Alor's death marks the 496th medical sector worker killed by Israel since October last year. Another 1,500 workers have been wounded. 309 have been arrested. Concerns about mistreatment and abuse of Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails have also been raised by rights groups. There are documented cases of widespread mistreatment and violations. Saudi Arabian authorities have intensified arrests of citizens critical of Israel's actions in Gaza, particularly on social media platforms. The arrests target individuals advocating for boycotts of American brands in Saudi Arabia and those expressing strong anti-Israel sentiments. Reports from Bloomberg Media says the kingdom is also detaining notable figures. Recently, an executive involved in Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's economic initiatives has been arrested for criticizing Israel's war on Palestine. The crackdown aligns with ongoing efforts by the United States to broker normalization between Riyadh and Israel. Reports say U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken's recent visit to the Gulf shows progress in negotiations, bringing the parties close to a potential agreement. However, Saudi Arabia maintains its stance on not establishing diplomatic ties with Israel until an independent Palestinian state is recognized. An influential Egyptian businessman is reportedly making a staggering $2 million daily from Palestinians fleeing the conflict in Gaza. Ibrahim al-Rugani is known for his close ties to Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and the Egyptian military. UK-based news website Middle East Eye reports Organi's company, Hala Consulting and Tourism Services, has been charging exorbitant fee for transfer services at the Rafah crossing. The crossing is the sole exit point for Palestinians to flee the besieged enclave. Over the past 3 months alone, Hala has raked in a minimum of $118 million from desperate Palestinians trying to flee the region. The firm's profits doubled in April, averaging over $2 million per day. Critics argue that this monopoly on transfer services has led to exploitative pricing. Fees are skyrocketing to $5,000 per adult and $2,500 for children under 16. This marks a significant increase from the $350 per person charged before the conflict. Calls for action have intensified, with activists facing charges for protesting against Organi's practices. The Egyptian government denies condoning such fees, but has yet to address the issue. Tents, banners, and flags appeared on the University of Toronto's downtown campus yesterday in solidarity with the Palestinians. The students have joined counterparts at Canadian and U.S. universities in calling for transparency regarding ties with Israel. They're also calling for the universities to divest from Israeli companies. Similar encampments have emerged at McGill University, the University of Ottawa, and the University of British Columbia. The encampment at the University of Toronto, now dubbed the People's Circle for Palestine, is hosting diverse participants. The university's faculty members are also joining the movement. They are demanding their institution cease complicity in what they term a genocide. Previously, the university had asked the students to leave by yesterday evening. However, protesters remained steadfast, advocating for dialogue while asserting their right to protest. As the deadline approached, the university went on to say that it didn't intend to remove protesters if their activities remained peaceful. At McGill University in Montreal, dueling pro-Israel and pro-Palestinian demonstrations took place. Quebec Premier François Legault has called for the dismantling of encampments at McGill. The University of British Columbia's protest encampment has witnessed growth. There are plans for overnight stays and preparations for an extended demonstration. This coming Monday, multiple members of provincial parliament from various provincial parties are planning to wear the keffiyeh at the Legislative Assembly of Ontario in Toronto. The action is in defiance of the Speaker's decision to ban the checkered scarf. Earlier this year, Speaker Ted Arnott prohibited the MPPs from wearing the keffiyeh. The scarf is part of Arab culture and is often worn to symbolize solidarity with Palestinians. Arnott argues that keffiyehs are being used for political statements. The National Council for Canadian Muslims strongly criticizes Arnott's ruling. They label it as unjustifiable and unprecedented. The advocacy group says the Speaker's decision exceeds his powers. The group says the Legislative Assembly is meant to be the people's house and should be inclusive to all, regardless of political beliefs. The group says it hopes for meaningful action from MPPs during the upcoming session. Premier Doug Ford, opposition leader Merritt Stiles, and 2 other provincial party leaders have urged for the ban to be lifted. Today is the World Press Freedom Day. All Palestinian journalists covering Israel's war on Gaza have been awarded the World Press Freedom Prize by the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. The agency says the prize is a tribute to the courage of journalists facing difficult and dangerous conditions. More than 100 journalists have been killed during the war. In a statement, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says the media workers are risking their lives to bring news on everything, from war to democracy. Guterres says he is shocked and appalled by the high number of journalists killed in Israeli military operations in Gaza. He says the UN recognizes the invaluable work of journalists and media professionals to ensure that the public is informed and engaged. Reports by the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization show in the past 15 years there have been more than 750 attacks on journalists and news outlets reporting on environmental news. The UN chief is calling on governments, the private sector, and civil society to safeguard press freedom and the rights of media professionals around the world. Thank you for watching. Our news is produced by Muslim Network TV, which is a not-for-profit organization. We need your support for donations. Please scan the QR code on our broadcast or visit muslimnetwork.tv to donate now so we can continue to amplify the voices of Muslims in Canada and abroad. Assalamu alaikum.